before making a video, we have to set frame rate, shutter speed, aperture, ISO. Okay, we're all set. What's up guys, Dan Frullani here and welcome back to a new video. I just finished shooting sunrise. Golden hour, because we have two golden hours at sunrise and at sunset, but that's not the topic of the video. Today I would like to review with you some basics for filmmaking. So let's see, what are the most important settings that we need to set right away in the camera before shooting a video? That's very easy: frame rate, shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. But let's see one by one. Frame rate, what is it? It determines how many frames, how many shots will be shot per second to create the video. The standard for the cinema industry is 24 frames per second, because it's considered the minimum amount of picture shot each second that when we reproduce it as a video looks like a natural movement. So we set it at 24 frames per second to get the most natural movement. Then we have to set shutter speed, and the shutter speed should be set for a natural motion blur in the movement in the shot at double the frame rate. So 24 frames per second, double 48. Well, we don't have 48 on the Canon R8, we have 50, close enough. And we set it. If we set this lower shutter speed, we get more blur in the shot. If we set it higher, our footage will be a little bit jittery. So the rule is shutter speed has to be set at double the frame rate. The higher the shutter speed, the less the light passing through the sensor. The lower the shutter speed, the more light we get in the shot. But again, for video, we don't need to change that unless we shoot in slow motion. So if we shoot a 60, shutter speed should be 120 or 125. Slow motion 120 frames per second, shutter speed 250, and so on. But as I said, for regular real-time speed video, 24 frames per second, shutter speed double the frame rate, 1/50th of a second. Aperture, the aperture of the lens. It determines how much light is allowed to pass through the lens and hit the sensor. The more we close it, the more we lose light. The more we open it, the more we let the light in. Aperture determines also the depth of field. The higher the aperture, like f8, f10, f12, and so on, the more everything will be in focus. When we close the aperture, the more we close it, the more we isolate the subject, and everything will get more blurry in the background. This is how we get some awesome bokeh. It's about time you see something about you and me. Keep on guessing, 'cause it's all this tension, baby, stuck on questioning me. So to get some shallow depth of field, and that's what gives us the blurry background, we need a wide aperture like f2.8, f2, f1.8, f1.4, f1.2. But the blurry background doesn't only depend on the aperture. It depends on the distance between the subject and the camera and the background. So the closer would be the subject to the camera and far from the background, the more everything in the background will be blurred and the subject more isolated. So we don't always need a very wide aperture to get some bokeh, the shallow depth of field. It depends also a lot on the distance between the subject and the camera and the background, and also on the focal length, the specific lens, because the wider the lens, the less we get separation and shallow depth of field. Like with the 16 to 35 millimeters, at 16 millimeters we don't get a very blurry background even if we set it at its maximum aperture of 2.8. But when we zoom in, like at 35 millimeters for example, yeah, here, if the subject keeps the same distance from the camera and from the background, at 35 millimeters, we should get some shallow depth of field that we don't get when we are at 16 millimeters. And the effect is amplified if we use a tighter focal length, like a 50 millimeters, an 85 or 135 and so on. There will be more compression. The background will be really creamy, buttery. ISO, what is it? It's the sensitivity of the sensor to add more light to the scene. A basic ISO is usually 100, and that's ideal both for taking photos and videos. And usually with the ISO, just like for the shutter speed and aperture, we can control the light, but in a different way. At ISO 100, we get the best result possible. The more we increase it, like 200, 400, 800, 1600 and so on, the more we add digital noise to the footage. So in normal conditions, should be set at 100. Then, if we need more light, we can't touch the shutter speed because it has to be double frame rate for a natural motion blur in the shot. If the aperture is already all the way open, like f2.8, or if you use a very fast lens, f1.4, f1.2, but if we still don't have enough light, what do? We control the ISO, so we can set it higher and we get more light. Just be very careful because it adds digital noise. However, here I set the ISO at 800. Why so high? It's because it's true, 100 is the basic native ISO in general for any camera, but not when you film in log. When you film in a flat profile, each of these log profiles has a different native ISO that gives us the best results. In this case, I'm using C-Log 3, and the basic ISO for C-Log 3 is 800. What's the difference between shooting in C-Log and a default picture style? That when we use a default picture style, the contrast, the shadows and the highlights are defined and we can't change them much in post. So if something is blown out or something is too dark, we can't do much about it in post because we lose the details. We lose dynamic range. When we film in log, we retain most of the details, so we can recover something if it's not too much blown out from the highlights. Most of the times we are able to recover details from the shadows, so we have more flexibility in terms of color grading. Frame rate, shutter speed, aperture and ISO are not the only options we have to set before making a video, but these are definitely the most important ones, because then of course there are other things such as the color temperature, stabilization, sound. There are quite a few things, but what I told you in this video are the very basic ones. Alright, I think I'm gonna get ready to go to the beach, which is right here, by the way. And don't forget to check the links in the description to see all my gear stuff and things, my gear. And check the link to Artlist. You can get 2 months of awesome music, great sound effects, 2 months for free if you subscribe to an annual plan through my link. I think I don't have anything else to say for now. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want more, just go watch my channel. I made so many. So hit the like button, subscribe if you ain't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh yeah!